morning and welcome in. This is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel.
Thank you for having me on.
All the way to the green. It was, woo! Boy, was that fun.
I've always wanted to be on 5 Clubs. Thanks, Gary.
Welcome in. This is 5 Clubs live on Golf Channel on a Wednesday morning. Also, PGA Tour Radio, that is Sirius XM Channel 92. I am Gary Williams. This program is presented by Century Insurance. They're invested not only in us, but in really important things in the game of golf with the First Tee, with the United States Golf Association, their handicap system as well. We appreciate the support of Century Insurance. Business insurance is their business. Today, we will be joined by a guy who's sitting to my left, Brendon de Jonge, who's got his own radio show along with Johnson Wagner, Wagyu Filet, Monday through Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Sirius XM's Channel 92. He jets out today. He will be doing Golf Central Pregame because it is time to go for the PGA Tour's Sony Open. So you will see a lot of him starting tomorrow through Sunday. And a reminder for us, on Sunday, we are going to do a live show here for 5 Clubs at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you think that I cannot do not only a preview of the final round of the Sony Open by simultaneously also doing de facto play-by-play on Patriots-Texans, just watch me. Because at 5 o'clock, it's going to be the fourth quarter of that divisional playoff game. So looking forward to Sunday at 5, live for 5 Clubs right here on Golf Channel. I mentioned Brendon de Jonge, Taylor Zarzour, whose program just ended on Sirius XM. The starter is going to join us in about 10 to 12 minutes. We got a lot to discuss. A lot of big picture preview stuff. We'll put a bow also on Brooks Koepka. But my friends, good to see you. Good morning. How you feeling?
I feel great. Thanks for having me in.
It's good to have you. Your partner's sleeping in late. You guys will get after it again at 11. Let me just say this about you and him and what you guys have now Monday to Wednesday on Sirius XM. And I mentioned that because when we're done at 9 o'clock, Smiley Kaufman's show, the Smiley Show, along with Charlie Holm. Charlie's, you love Charlie, so do I. Their program is going to follow. And then after that, the Vanity Index with Chad Mumm and Will Adams at 10 a.m. So more programming. But I say that because I remember 4 years ago, sitting with Johnson, he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe some broadcasting. And we actually had a call with Smiley and Johnson and you. And it's like, well, yeah, I'd like to do some stuff. And look where we are. Look where we are. Smiley Kaufman is what he is. His presence on the NBC golf team. Obviously, Johnson making the impact that he had on Golf Channel. I know they loved all that he did. And now he makes his way onto the CBS broadcast golf team. And here you are with your radio program, with your work on PGA Tour Live, and also with Golf Channel on Golf Central Pregame. We've come a long way in 4 years, have we not?
We have, and thank you to you guys for giving us the shot to get started. But yeah, and I was of the belief that I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't enjoying the game of golf at the time. I found out that I just wasn't enjoying playing competitive golf. I still really do love the game of golf and loving to get to do this side of it now.
Well, it's great that as time passes, it's not only who's playing and who's the best, but who are the people capable who've done it, who can share their thoughts on how they do it and the process of achievement and doubt and the ebbs and flows that come with doing what you did. And so, first of all, it's great to have you back to contribute like you will for us, but also the radio program again, 11 o'clock today. That'll wrap up your broadcast week with Johnson Wagner, and then you're off to Connecticut for Golf Central Pregame Thursday through Sunday. The Koepka thing, let's put a bow on it, because I know you've spent the last couple days on your radio show talking about it. Give me overall what you like about what the PGA Tour did, whether it be him specifically, but also this other little narrow window for a finite number of players, and what you were hearing or just you yourself don't particularly love about the reentry.
Yeah, to your point there, I have spoken to quite a few guys about it because, some guys are not really comfortable giving you their exact feelings on it. So trying to get a little bit more inside to what guys really think. And honestly, Gary, to a man, everybody's happy with the way the PGA Tour have handled this and having Brooks Koepka back. And I think, listen, this is what the fans want, right? They want the best players playing against each other. That has been a common theme since Live Golf started and how we get these guys back. I love the fact that they're not dragging their feet and making Brooks sit out a whole year. Get him back there as quick as he can. Listen, these are some pretty heavy penalties that he's having to face right here. A $5 million fine, essentially. Really the biggest ever in professional sport. That's a massive, massive deal right there. But I love the fact that Brooks Koepka is we're going to get to see him in a couple weeks' time, essentially.
Yeah, the other thing is the fact that his presence in fields will not deny somebody else's presence in fields. As a matter of fact, in all likelihood, it's probably going to add players to fields because the alternate list is going to have to be activated because of the number that him being in fields is going to present, whether it's one more, two more, that as well. Last night on TGL, Tiger Woods' team took another loss. They've become accustomed to doing that, Jupiter Lynx. So they lost, but in the aftermath of that loss, he, along with, and now he didn't play, but he was very present out there. He actually threw the hammer flag after like one shot of the competition. But after they took the loss, he was asked about Brooks Koepka's reentry, reinstatement onto the PGA Tour. And of course, he is right in the middle of all this with the Player Advisory Council. Here are Tiger Woods' thoughts last evening about Brooks Koepka returning to the PGA Tour.
Well, we received his letter on December 23rd that he wants to come back. Wrote to the commissioner and Brian. We took that letter, then took it to both boards and tried to implement a plan that would be fair and adequate, that justifies Brooks' time away from our tour. The penalties served, the fines if necessary, what the integration would look like on our tour, and obviously the bonus payouts, yes or no. And we had lots of subsequent meetings, worked through the holidays. There was no days off, and we just worked through it day after day after day, and we came out with a plan that we unveiled. And yes, we're not going to satisfy every player. This plan was created for a very select few players that met the criteria. You know the names. And as far as his integration, he has the right, I think, in our sport with our meritocracy that we have on the PGA Tour, that he has the right to earn his way into signature events. And if he plays well enough, he has a chance to earn his way into the playoffs. But he's not going to get the bonus pool from that. But he has a chance to earn his way into those fields. Plus, on top of that, he's not taking a spot away from any player. Okay, that was one of the main concerns, and one of the big things that myself and the other player directors demanded that was never going to be the case. He's an additive, and then on top of that, to fill out the group, or if it happens to be in a summer where it's twosomes, or it happened to be where it's threesomes, there's two more players that could get in. So the alternate list, I think they're going to be impacted getting in one or two more events, which is a positive thing. And on top of that, we get probably top three of his generation player back that went to another tour, played over there, and was adamant about coming back here and got out early to come back. That says a lot about the PGA Tour, where we're headed, what we have done, what we accomplished, and the players who have stayed and have supported the tour. Having another world-class player that these guys are going to try and beat, that's what the fans demanded. That's what the fans wanted for our fan initiative program, and I think we've addressed that.
That's a pretty comprehensive answer, talking about all the details that allowed him to return to the PGA Tour. I was listening to you guys yesterday on the Wagyu Filet show on Sirius XM, and you were talking about his performance. I subsequently heard what John McGinnis has said, what Robert Dameron has said. You're very bullish, maybe not immediately, but you think that he has a lot of winning left to do.
I do, and knowing Brooks, the amount that I do, he's also a guy that's full of pride. He's a very prideful guy. He's going to take this as a big challenge. He's going to want to come back, and he's going to want to play well. You know, he's not one of the guys that's going to want to just come back here and, you know, show up every now and then. He's spoken openly about how much he loves the big tournaments. I expect to see Brooks Koepka competing in the big tournaments. But yeah, as you say, maybe not immediately. Might take a little while, maybe next year. But I do expect Brooks to certainly contend in some majors.
Yeah, I think you can't really argue because he's a 5-time major winner in terms of the totality of what he's done on the PGA Tour is odd. It's one of the more interesting resumes for a 5-time major winner. I'm not including Seve in this conversation because he was such a prolific winner on the European Tour and really was never comfortable here, didn't play a lot in the United States, so that's not a fair comparison. The other thing is that Brooks Koepka, his profile is marketable. I think because he left and he's come back, there is sizzle to now him being back. Josh Carpenter from the Sports Business Journal, he didn't say this definitively like this is going to happen, but he made the suggestion that maybe his reentry, you don't wait until the Farmers Insurance Open, that he has dabbled, he's been seen at TGL, he was there last season. Why not insert him, pull him out of the bullpen, maybe put Kisner on the pine, put him on ice for Jupiter Lynx, and next week, after the national championship game is on ESPN on Monday night, promote the fact that the first chance you're going to get to see of Brooks Koepka is there. Isn't that clever?
I think that's brilliant. I think that is absolutely brilliant.
They should do it.
Kiz needs to be on the pine. Kiz needs to be sitting there watching. He can spout all he wants from sitting over there, but I think that would be absolutely brilliant.
So the TGL Season 2, and look, having Tiger anywhere, he was kind of on and off the mic in short spurts last night. There's real value. Him being there, him sharing his thoughts about Brooks last night afterwards is valuable. But in terms of Brooks Koepka, and look, he'll do a pre-tournament presser at the Farmers. It doesn't mean it's going to absolve him of that responsibility. But if you can put him in what is an additive with connective tissue to the PGA Tour in TGL, I don't know why you wouldn't do it. What about TGL? What do you think TGL needs to do as they move forward? Obviously, an infusion of other players. I would start there. Are there other elements that you think can continue to not only hold the traction you established? Look, Monday night, Tuesday night, getting 750,000 people to watch simulator golf is pretty good.
Yeah.
It is in the grand scheme of things. What else would you recommend they do?
Well, we were talking a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
I think the fact that they've added a third voice, Roberto Castro's in there now with Matt Berry and Scott Van Pelt. I think that's huge. Roberto's going to get more and more comfortable. He's an intelligent guy, extremely intelligent guy. He's going to get more comfortable in the role that he's, expressing what's going on and what these guys are thinking and that sort of stuff. And I think he's really a necessary element to this. If it wasn't Roberto Castro, somebody else that knows these guys or that has played on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, I know they auditioned several past players for a role. And I shared my thoughts with Rory. This was about midway through the season last year. He asked me my thoughts, and I said, look, you have two, really talented broadcasters in Matt Berry and Marty Smith, but you need a golf voice. You need somebody there, whether it be for levity or in the case of Roberto Castro, somebody who's got an intellect that from a data-driven standpoint can give you a perspective that I think adds to the overall broadcast product. Look, this is a handful of shots that are executed pretty swiftly, and time matters, but also the timeliness of the input of the voices that you're hearing. Adding a third voice I thought was essential. Then the other element I would say is, look, I don't know how you incorporate the wagering component into simulator golf. But again, in real time, we know the value of real-time wagering in golf. It's a big, big market. I know Keith Stewart, who's going to be a contributor here on 5 Clubs, is writing now about TGL for The Athletic. I know that he posted some stuff at the beginning of this week specifically about this match. Look, you have a lot of big names. I don't think they're ever getting Scheffler. Do you agree with that?
100%. I don't think Scottie has any interest in going over there and playing TGL. It just doesn't fit his mold.
No, it doesn't. Last thing about Brooks. Look, and we do this frivolous exercise. Look, we're going to have picks at the end of this show. Boy, we were great last year, both Dubai and the Sony Open. But you said yesterday, and I think you and Johnson were kind of in concert on this, maybe not winning this year, but that he'll contend, but that you think that 27 could be not only, him deep into the pool late in a major or two, but that's really where you think his production is going to kick in? Is that fair?
Yeah, for me, I just feel like there's going to be just a little bit of a call it what you want, an introductory back period for Brooks. I think it's going to take him a little bit of time, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him in 27, at least contending.
I will say this, that as a two-time winner of the WM Phoenix Open, if he jumps up and he's in contention late, not that they need any more buzz, somebody with a bag on his head could have a one-shot lead and the place is going to be lathered up. But if he gets in contention, my gosh, what a jumping-off point for reentry for him. All right, Taylor Zarzour, the host of The Starter, is going to join us. So we will go three wide, three boxing it here on a Wednesday. A lot of discussion about Rory, about Scheffler, about players who are getting ready to make that next leap as well. And we'll look kind of big picture about players who maybe you think maybe their profile is lower, but could be elevated so much so that they're going to be in a conversation to represent a team competition at the end of this season, whether it be for the United States or the international side and the President's Cup. Just getting started live on a Wednesday. Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. Myself, Brendon de Jonge. Taylor Zarzour joins us next, plus dogs and picks. We're back right after this. Welcome back in this live Wednesday edition of 5 Clubs on Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio. That is Channel 92 on Sirius XM. And this segment brought to you by Peter Millar. This Bingham sport coat that I'm wearing, it's the most versatile, best jacket, best travel item you could have. Fold it in a suitcase, take it out, wear it to dinner. He might have worn it last night somewhere, who knows, maybe at San Antonio Taco Company, sharing some empanadas with Keith Urban. From his cushy lair in the west end of Nashville, the host of The Starter joins us now to add to this conversation. He, of course, Taylor Zarzour. Good morning, my friend. How you doing?
I'm great. Good shout out to a place near your alma mater at Vanderbilt. I went to the Predators game last night instead and saw an overtime victory. And I noticed that Mr. de Jonge is not wearing one of those nice sport coats. I really wish that, kind of like when he's on Golf Channel, he steals a neighbor's sport coat and would have worn it this morning instead of that sweatshirt. But here we are.
It would remind me a little bit of Tommy Boy trying to sell spark plugs. If he put that sport coat on. Nobody immerses himself in wherever it is that they are better than you do, which is a great thing. I know how much you love being in Nashville, calling the games for the Titans. So let's try to cover as much ground as we can. And Taylor, let me start with you. Look, I know you've shared your feelings over the last couple of days about Brooks, so we'll cast that aside for the moment. But Scottie Scheffler is the best player in the world. He's going to start his season at the American Express. If he wins at the rate that he's been winning, it's going to be more contextualizing what he's doing in relation to Tiger Woods. He's got 19 wins in his last 4 seasons. You got to look at Tiger from his first full season in 97 through 2000, and he had other stretches. He won 22 times during that 4-season stretch. 19 that's a big haul. What if he does it again? What are we doing in terms of where he's elevating himself historically?
Well, first I would say, why wouldn't we expect him to not do that again in 2026, given what he's done the last 4 years? I have every expectation that it's going to continue in 2026. As long as this guy is as fueled as he currently is by being the best player in the world, by competing against others in the game of golf. I expect him to win a handful of times, certainly give himself a chance to win almost every time that he plays in 2026. And yes, when that happens, I think we need to start talking not only about Tiger Woods, but about where this run ranks in the history of the game of golf. As you know, Gary, 50 years ago, Johnny Miller had a run, maybe not as long as the one Scottie's on, but he had a run in the mid-'70s where he dominated, especially the front portion of the calendar in the mid-1970s. But other than those two examples, you really can't find anybody unless you go back to Hogan or Nelson that dominated for years and years and winning at this prolific of a rate. I think on one hand, you would say this is the greatest run we've ever seen by a male professional golfer.
Yeah, it's 7 2 years ago, 6 this previous year. As great as Rory's been, he's never had a 5-win season, and I qualify that knowing that he plays a lot of fall golf. He maybe doesn't play quite as many PGA Tour events. He does play on the DP World Tour. Phil, with his 45, never 5 in one season, a lot of 4-win seasons. So Brendon, if he keeps doing this, is it possible, especially if he wins another major and he joins Koepka and he joins Rory with 5, can he pass them this year historically in the grand scheme of things, even though he doesn't have as much overall heft that certainly Rory does as far as total wins? Can he pass him in your mind historically this year?
No, not yet, Gary. Not for me. You look at the full body of work for Rory, and you look what he's done on the DP World Tour as well, with the 20 wins over there, the 7 race to Dubai's. It's still going to take a little bit more. Rory's got 29 wins on the PGA Tour. Say Scottie does get another 5. Obviously, we're speculating that would put him at 24. So still a ways behind Rory, but I will say that he'd be closing that gap very, very quickly.
Yeah, Taylor, if it's not just, look, Varden trophies, that they matter, FedEx Cup trophies, of which Rory has more than anybody. Let's say Scottie gets another one of those, and I certainly respect the point about the total wins, but if he completes the career Grand Slam, which Rory did last year, and Scottie does it in basically a year's time from getting his third to getting the final leg, and he does it at the U.S. Open at Shinnecock, and he wins 5 times, does he have to have the same number of total wins for people to say he's the better player historically?
Yeah, it's an interesting point that Brendon made. I think that in the public's mind, maybe Rory would have a slight advantage still, just because of how long his career has been and all the places it's taken him. And I think another thing that statistically probably you wouldn't measure is all the Ryder Cup success that Rory has had. That has to mean something to the public. But if you just went through it and just went through the resume, it's hard to argue with what you just said. If this man on his 30th birthday completes the career Grand Slam on June 21st at Shinnecock, then I don't know how you could statistically look at him and say he's behind Rory. But I think Brendon's right. I think just from a perceptual standpoint, I think that he might still have something more to do because of all the other success Rory has had all over the world. Scottie, yes, just won the Open Championship last year, but we don't see Scottie as the dominant figure globally all over the place that Rory has been. As we're talking right here, I'm sure we're about to make picks in a little while about a tournament overseas that Scottie's not playing in, and Rory is playing. So I think that's probably another factor.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mentioned this before the end of the year. Look, we waited 25 years to see somebody else do what Tiger did. It took Tiger a month to complete the career Grand Slam from the U.S. Open in June of 2000 to his opus at the Open Championship at the Old Course a month later. So we waited 25 years. But it is interesting that 60 years ago, Player completed their career Grand Slam in 1965, and Jack did it the following year in 1966. So we could go 25-26, like 65-66. So if we're going to get an interlude with Rory and Scottie, who have real affection for each other, there's respect, there's appreciation, there's warmth there. Is it there? Is it Shinnecock, Brendon, that if they're going to have an interlude, where it's mano-a-mano? Because, look, this stuff happens very infrequently. Would you pick there?
I'd pick somewhere before there
Okay.
and let us dream, Gary, but Augusta. I mean, Scottie and Rory coming down the stretch at Augusta, they've won 3 of the last 4 Masters tournaments. This would be absolute theater if we could see those 2 guys, the 2 undoubted best players in the game right now, coming down the stretch at Augusta. I think that would just be absolutely phenomenal.
Well, it would just, in terms of, look, it's not going to eclipse what last year was. Taylor, you weren't on the 18th hole. It was one of the great just expeditions / odysseys / culminations to a golf tournament. You guys needed oxygen coming down from that little perch on 18 when it was over. But if you get Scottie and Rory, do you agree with Brendon, or do you think that Shinnecock might be the most plausible spot?
Our buddy Mr. Wagner needed tissues.
Yeah, yes, he did. A whole bushel
it
full.
was a powerful moment for sure. I do. Maybe I'm overthinking this a bit. I wonder if the celebration of Rory's win last year has any impact on how he plays at Augusta National. I mean, it's going to be the biggest members welcome of all time at the Masters in 2026. So maybe that has some impact on the way that Rory plays, because I think he wants to enjoy every single moment of being the defending champion. So I'm going to pick Shinnecock, yes. I could see it happening at any of these places. Aronimink would be a good spot for it. Yep. Certainly could happen in England at the Open Championship as well. I mean, these guys obviously have a chance every time they tee it up. But I am going to pick Shinnecock. I think that's the spot. And boy, do I want to see it. That's the one thing we have not seen. We have not seen a true Rory-Scottie duel. And I think that would be just outstanding for professional golf in 2026.
Yeah, look, the PGA Tour is going, how about some of these signature events? And that's fair. Yeah. And I look, we hope we get it. We hope we get the 2 of them in most of them, because I think there's a little doubt as to whether, either player can satisfy from a scheduling standpoint playing at every one. The thing about Shinnecock, as you guys both know, and Rory spoke about this at Oakmont, he missed the cut at Shinnecock, and after that started to build, even though he was a past champion, a resume of, I'm as good as anybody in this environment. And I know, and he spoke about, look, it's an ego thing. I think people thought like pincushion congressional, that's the way you can win an Open. No, give me firm, give me fiery, give me the totality of the examination, and I want to prove to you that I'm as complete as anybody. That's where I think that where his goals still lie, even though he's won one already, getting it more on the back end and getting in a place that you guys know he loves the east end of Long Island. There's affection there, specifically for Shinnecock itself. I'm going there, and I think, Taylor, your point about Augusta, gosh, it's going to be hard. Look, Tuesday will be emotional. His pre-tournament presser, he gets reflective. How can he dig in to the degree that's going to be required come Thursday? I'm with you that it's going to be as much of a coronation and a celebration as it is just, hey, defend the title, so to speak. All right, we take a break. We come back. Much more to get to. Taylor Zarzour, host of The Starter, that precedes us here at 7 a.m., and he goes all week long. And if he's not doing that, he'll be calling a softball game between Mississippi State and Ole Miss sometime later this week. Count on that. And, of course, Brendon de Jonge, his show at 11 a.m. today with Johnson Wagner, and then he will be on Golf Central Pregame starting tomorrow for the Sony Open through Sunday. We are live on Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio. We're back right after this. Back in on this Wednesday here on 5 Clubs on Golf Channel, and of course Channel 92, that's PGA Tour Radio on Sirius XM. This segment brought to you by Century Insurance. Business insurance is what they do. Evaluate yours with them. They've been in the business for over 100 years, trusted by countless clients. They want to be right by you. They are our presenting sponsor, Century Insurance. Taylor Zarzour, the host of The Starter, at 7 a.m. daily here on PGA Tour Radio. And of course, he's a big part of PGA Tour Live. His season will begin next week on PGA Tour Live for the American Express, which will be the beginning of Scottie Scheffler's season. Of course, Brendon de Jonge, Wagyu Filet, 11 a.m. Eastern on Sirius XM. And of course, he's actually going to be calling the golf, the Sony Open, alongside Steve Sands. I would imagine maybe a late dinner for you guys after the broadcast, and 1 or 100 stories from Sandsy that you can count on. All right, guys, let's try to get to as many players and kind of projections as we can. And let me start, Taylor, with you on Tommy Fleetwood. Had not only, look, he was a very, very established winner on the DP World Tour. But in terms of winning on the PGA Tour, he hadn't broken through the vortex. So he does it. He wins the Tour Championship. He wins the FedEx Cup. He has another great Ryder Cup. And then there's Xander Schauffele, who comes back late after an injury-filled season, wins before the end of the calendar year, played well at the Ryder Cup, coming off of 2 majors the year before. Who's going to have a better year?
Everything would make you believe Fleetwood because of what he just did in 2025, but I'm going to go Schauffele. I think this guy is burning to be one of the best players in the world. The only thing he has not done is been the #1 player in the world now at this point. He's won multiple major championships. He's turned into a prolific winner. He obviously is coming off of a disappointing season overall. He is still his toughest critic. I love how hard he is on himself to be a better player. I think he desperately wants to be seen in the same light as Rory McIlroy and Scottie Scheffler, and I think that he'll do that in 2026, assuming good health. I still need to see Tommy Fleetwood do it in the majors. We've seen Schauffele do it in all tournaments. The next step for Tommy is to do it in the major championships. So until that happens, I'm still going to pick Xander, at least between these two.
Yeah, Fleetwood has good memories at Shinnecock. He made the late run there. He was the one kind of last line of defense with Shane Lowry, but didn't make any putts. But you're right. I mean, in terms of crossing that line, that's the next line. How about you, Brendon? Fleetwood, Schauffele, total production, better overall season that we can say definitively he had a better year than that guy. Who is it?
Yeah, obviously you can make such a valid argument for both these guys. I'm going to go the other way just because Taylor went with Schauffele. I'm going to say Fleetwood. I think he carries that form in from 25 straight into 26. Doesn't miss a beat. I think he gets right back on the horse, wins in Dubai this week, and I think it just leads into a massive season for Tommy Fleetwood.
That's right. I think you might be picking Fleetwood, which is...
He just gave away his pick.
Yeah, not only gave away his pick, but gave away the chances of Tommy Fleetwood having a chance to win. Although Brendon had a good fall. He had a good fall when it didn't count. Very little pressure to make picks in the fall after the Tour Championship. I'm gonna sign with Taylor on this because the thing about Schauffele is that I think he's in a different space. If you look at what he did before he got injured, I think he's the guy that week in and week out, when we have these conversations, and it's natural, about Scheffler and Rory, the one guy who I honestly think can nose himself in the middle of that conversation is that guy. Because if you look at the totality of the way that he can do it, he has now found, with the work that he has done with Chris Como, he's easy speed at 185 late in a golf tournament. I'm talking about 4 holes to go in the Open Championship, 185 ball speed, hitting, these low, just bullet cuts, and you're going, okay, this guy's in a different space. I also think that through the bag, closer you get to the hole, reliability, I think that he believes he's as good as anybody. So I'll go, but I will say this about Tommy, Brendon, that I think is fun. Late prime. We look at all these guys and go, hey, if you're not as good as you're going to be by 28, you're never going to be any better than that. He's proving that late prime is still an achievable thing because he's later. The meter's been running here for a while. And I also think that's why he's a darling. Like, he has an affection, especially from American fans, that very few have.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's something really, really cool about seeing these guys that are a little bit later in their prime and starting to play their best golf now, especially the way golf is trending. It really is becoming a young man's game. So, yeah, really cool to see what Tommy is doing now. And as I say, I expect this to be his biggest year.
Yeah,
and I would agree with you on Fleetwood, Gary. The connection he has built with fans, not only in Europe, but all over the world, is something that's really been refreshing to see the last couple of years. And if he were to win a major championship in 2026, that would be one of the most popular wins any player could have. You always talk about juice and how much, the fans are cheering for a certain player. The fans are cheering for Tommy Fleetwood to win a major championship.
No question about it. All right, Cam Young, I know that, Brendon, before the end of the year, we were talking about, elevating to another space. Before we talk about Cam Young and Ludwig Åberg, Cam Young was asked about what he got late in the year from a confidence standpoint when he spoke last night at TGL. Here's what he had to say.
Obviously, you got the win last year, the Ryder Cup experience. What's your confidence like in your game heading into 2026?
It's high. I feel like I'm in a good place. Like you said, I've kind of ticked some, career boxes over the course of the last 6-7 months. And to me, it's really just a matter of building on all of the proof that I had before, that, my good golf is good enough to do all the things that I want to do in the game of golf. And so I'm really excited to get the season started and kind of hope to continue some of the momentum that I had at the end of last season.
So, Brendon, when you talked about him at the end of the year, in terms of expounding upon that again, why do you think, and I'm making this a direct comparison to Ludwig Åberg, why do you think that Cam Young is in a place that is ready for him to become, arguably, maybe without argument, one of the 5 to 7 best players in the world?
Gary, I think, and I saw a lot of this at the Ryder Cup, he's got some killer in him. He's got some real dog in him.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see that, almost a little chip on his shoulder that he's playing golf with now. And I think Cam Young, he said it there, like he's getting all the proof that everything he's been doing is correct in elevating his game. And I just think he's one of those guys that was such a confidence player, and now the fact that he has got over that hurdle there, I think he takes it to the next level.
Yeah, Taylor, the nasty dog that doesn't bark but has a big bite is like the scariest dog on the block. What about Cam Young? And if I said to you Ludwig, which I think sometimes it's not like we move off of players, but we kind of move away a little bit if they kind of level. And certainly, it's not like he's dipped. It's just that it was like, okay, he'll continue to ascend. And there wasn't a huge, steep ascension last year. When you compare these two, who are you more bullish on in 26?
Well, it's Young also, and it's for the reasons that Brendon just said. I need to see that dog in Ludwig Åberg. The guy has every single shot. He looks like he was made in a lab. He's an unbelievable athlete, and he's extraordinarily talented. But that's the one thing that we need to see from Ludwig, is that dogged mentality to not only win, but then continue to put himself in position to win on a week-in, week-out basis. I think you just heard it there in the clip from Cam Young. He had to prove it to himself, and he did. And now that he's done that, I think that he doesn't have that big monkey on his back where he's wondering, when am I going to win a golf tournament? What am I going to do to blow this? If you watch him closely in tournaments, this guy is so hard on himself out there on the golf course, constantly berating himself. And since he's won, I've not seen almost any of that.
Yeah.
And I think that was really important to get past. And now that Young has done that, I would expect a big 2026 from him. So I'd give him an edge over Åberg. That's the one thing, that would be a wonderful thing, I think, for all of us to see if we do get a little more passion out of Åberg when he has a chance to cross the line.
Yeah, I would say, and this just is slightly, and part of it is because you both have certainly gone and stumped for Cam Young, and I get it. It's understandable. It was interesting to me that Ludwig won the Genesis, and it's like, okay, here we go again. He also played well at the Masters again. He finished 7th there. He had moments where his tournaments came undone by a series of big blow-ups on a couple of different occasions. But it wasn't just those finite moments. if you look at his statistics, like his strokes gained approach, his iron play went way down. He went from top 15 to just inside the top 50. He's got to get back to where through the bag there's this no holes, because that's the one thing about him that everyone said, well, he's got no holes. Like you said, he was built in a lab. And yeah, also the idea that, you know what, be a little edgy, be a little chippy. It doesn't mean you have to be demonstrative, but be that way when it matters, because Cam Young, it's not like Cam Young is demonstrative, but when you handle what he handled at the Ryder Cup, you're going, like Brendon said, he's got some dog in him. All right, last thing, the Jordan Spieth situation. Look, I thought last year was encouraging, and maybe I'm thinking overly optimistically, but I don't. I thought it was an encouraging year. Taylor, what do you expect?
I expect him to win a golf tournament in 2026. I don't know that I expect him to be a top 10 player and give himself a chance every single week. I still see some inconsistency from Jordan Spieth on a week in, week out basis. And I do think the fact that he's had to deal with a number of injuries in the last few years, and really I think it's mental more than physical, knowing he can trust his body has been a big issue for him the last couple of years. But I'm expecting a clean bill of health. He's given himself a huge layoff to make sure that his body was prepared for 2026. And he's the kind of guy that when he does get near the lead, you do have a lot of confidence in. He seems to thrive off of that. And I do think he'll give himself a chance somewhere. And I think that's huge for the PGA Tour, Jordan Spieth winning a golf tournament. Even though it hasn't happened that often in the last handful of years, I still think he's one of the 2-3 most popular players out there.
Yeah, I don't think that's an argument. All right, Brendon, what do you think? Spieth this year.
I don't, Gary, and I agree with you guys. He's an absolute draw card, but the word Taylor used there, inconsistency. A couple years ago it was the driver. The driver was off. He figured the driver issues out. Then the iron game came off. It was one of the worst iron players on the PGA Tour statistically. So I just don't see it out of Jordan Spieth. I just don't feel like the game is consistent enough to hold up through 4 rounds.
Yeah, that's just it. It's okay. So we know he's got enough pop in the bat. And that was something, well, you know, but I think he was among the best iron players in the world when he was at his very best. Yes, when you make a bunch of 30-footers, it's like, well, it's just because he makes everything. No, he was as good in terms of strokes gained approach for about a 3-year period. He's got to hit more consistent iron shots. And he's got to be more reliable from 5, 8, 10 feet. The idea that we're watching him over his 6-footer and we're all collectively feeling this anxiety, reliability through the bag is the reason why. But I will say this, he could show up in a mummified state at Augusta National. I'm still going to pick him to finish in the top 10 because of his record and his artistry and his ingenuity. All right, we're going to cut you boys loose. Taylor, great to have you back. Great to see your face. Looking forward to a lot of this in 26. And, of course, Brendon, you as well. Your show coming up at 11 a.m. Eastern alongside Johnson Wagner. Wagyu Filet, Monday through Wednesday on PGA Tour Radio. Boys, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
All right, we come back. Dogs and picks. These guys' thoughts, they're not done. And those were Century winning words when it comes to making decisions about your business insurance. Well, let Century give you the right answers. They will be right by you, and we will be right back. All right, a couple minutes left here on this Wednesday. Dogs of the week. That's right. If you've got a dog that has any type of connection to the game of golf, send us a picture or a video. It's dogs@5clubsgolf.com. We want to celebrate them all. We did it all year last year. We will continue it because they are the greatest creatures on earth, because Bucky and Charlie are waiting at home going, okay, enough talk. Get home, get us fed. Let's get to the dogs of the week, our first batch of 2026. That is Charlotte, Kevin Arnold's dog. Charlotte is helping with the ruling at Mid-Pines during the Webb Simpson Challenge back in early December. What, are you going to tell her that she's wrong? Thank you for saying that in, Kevin Arnold. That is Bruno, Samuel Cook's dog. Every Saturday morning, Bruno is waiting at the front door to make sure he gets to tag along on Saturday mornings. Every golf club in East Tennessee knows Bruno. That is Augie. Of course it is. Augie wouldn't be a small dog. That's a majestic dog. That is P.J. Breton's dog, the head golf professional at Tatnuck Country Club in Worcester, Mass. Augie is a 6-year-old charcoal English lab. And those two, that's Looper and Mulligan. Looper is the Border Collie Poodle. Mulligan is the mini Aussie Doodle. That is Mike Bird's dog, the president of New Direction Golf Management and the superintendent at Gauntlet Golf Club in Fredericksburg, Virginia. They may not look that happy. They're happy. Of course, they're always happy, and especially if they are on a golf course. Send them in, dogs@5clubsgolf.com. All right, our picks. We got 2 events. Look, the Dubai Invitational has got an excellent field, highlighted by the presence of Rory McIlroy, and Rory getting some play. 3 of our contributors, Gil Hanse, Taylor Zarzour, Jay Billis, before he called Iowa State and Kansas last night, submitted his pick of Rory McIlroy. Keith Stewart, who's really a professional at this, takes Ryan Fox, Tommy Fleetwood for Brendon, Nikolai Horgaard for Emma. I'm going to go with David Puig, who's off winning the Australian PGA late in the year, the young Spanish player. All right, from there, we go to the Sony Open, first event of the PGA Tour season, and it likely is the swan song for this wonderful event at Waialae Country Club. Bob McIntyre for me, J.J. Spaun, who really set the tone for his year last year at the Sony for Gil Hanse, Russell Henley for Emma and Taylor. And then on the bottom, Chris Kirk for Keith. Jay Billis goes with Hideki Matsuyama, and Brendon de Jonge goes with Colin Morikawa, is trying to break that winless streak. A couple reminders, because the Heartbeat, if you've not registered for the Heartbeat, 2-person teams in August out there at Landman in Homer, Nebraska. And then also, we're not waiting until Monday to do a show. Sunday at 5 p.m. live here at 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you Sunday.